Hey, it's the Arvind and Mike Show. He's an education investor, and I'm an education entrepreneur. We are both dads to 2 kids. He's a Carolina Tar Heel with Indian parents, whereas I am a Duke Blue Devil with Jewish parents. All of which meaning there are 4 retirees out there disappointed that neither of us became doctors.
My 4-year-old has difficulty consuming water.
Okay.
She tends to not drink as much, so it tends to be one of the things I have to needle her about. And she was playing, and I called her over. I said, "Hey, come over here. Drink some water." She's like, "I'm not thirsty." And I said, "Your body needs water." And she just goes, "You do not control what my body needs." And man, I was just like, touche.
Yeah, so no water was consumed.
Yeah, I gave up on that one quick.
That's parenting, man.
The idea of who controls what is, I think, a salient one for our topic today.
Yes.
Today's topic is the next conservative education agenda. So you shared with me a link to an article. You want to provide some context for this?
Sure. There's a guy I know named Rick Hess who is a scholar at the America Enterprise Institute. And, you know, what I love about him as a thinker is he's very pro-innovation. I wouldn't say he neatly falls into the red tribe or the blue tribe politically.
Yeah.
I think he has a bunch of ideas that are kind of orthogonal to the normal way people think about stuff, but matter to people like you that are education investors and people like me that are education entrepreneurs. And mostly he drives everybody bananas because he is fond, from all tribes, of pointing out the failures of everybody's pet ideas, which makes me like him.
Nice. I got to say, after reading his article, it was quite thought-provoking. There's a lot that I want to talk to you about from this.
Let's go.
Okay, so let's dive in. First one is he kind of opens with this provocative idea that like maybe conservatives are playing too much defense, and it seems to be more obvious what conservatives are against in education than what they're for. And I thought that was a particularly appealing entry point to the conversation because it's a lot easier to criticize than it is to come up with solutions.
Yes. I think what Rick's frame roughly boils down to, I'll try to describe it and then you tell me if you think I'm getting it right. He'll sort of say, listen, the blue tribe at its simplest level just says more money. Pay teachers, pay them all more, free childcare, free college, free stuff. He's like, the red tribe in his article and in the talk yesterday with the different panelists is, you know, mostly about claiming more freedom, like school choice, parent choice, local choice rather than Washington choice, etc. And I agree. He's saying that's not compelling for the average, like, mom who might be willing to say, yeah, I don't think throwing more money at the schools is going to necessarily make them that much better, but doesn't want to hear, I don't know, political philosophy just around school choice as like the only kind of game in town.
As the panacea.
A lot of the people, at least in my circle tends to be very, very blue.
Yeah.
And so these are people that politically are Biden voters.
Yeah.
But professionally do not see a path to help lots of kids by simply throwing more money at the existing institutions. Like, yeah. That's the social entrepreneurs and the education investors. And they're looking for the freedom and opportunities to create new and delightful new things and better things.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so I want to take that to the next point. I want to get into the ideas that he proposed, because I thought there were a lot of interesting prescriptive options that he looked at across the spectrum. I thought it was really compelling on the early childhood side, the argument Rick was making about how we all have a shared goal of providing some sort of preschool education and alternative options, and and what that could provide. But why does that mean that it essentially turns into a 14th grade, and that we do so with all the existing infrastructure and bureaucracy that exists currently? Why, in the goal to provide more access to learning earlier, which is a laudable one and one that everyone agrees with, why are we thinking of it in only one size?
Yeah, I feel stuck, I suppose, on some of the early ed. There's just I don't know, so many layers of complexity to it. I think I do get lost. I know that one thing I believe is that the nerd in me, which has looked really carefully at pretty much every good high quality study of early childhood, is the advocates point to these unusual small randomized control trials, often from like 40 or 50 years ago, that show really large gains for kids across a whole bunch of things, academic and social and emotional.
Yeah.
But then a lot of the more recent scale-ups of universal childcare or early education in Quebec or in Oklahoma show no effect, or sometimes even light negative effects on kids.
Wow.
And as a result, I think I go towards some version of give parents the means to make a lot of different types of choices.
Yeah.
It's not, in other words, it's not like we have an early childhood vaccine that's really well understood and is just going to create a lot of benefit.
Yeah.
And all we need to do is like put the money against it.
Yep.
I disagree with those advocates and researchers that believe that. The other thing is that the market that could serve your family and a lot of other families, there's so much regulation around childcare. I mean,
yeah,
even more than K-12. And it limits what solutions can be offered to people. So that's why, like, you don't have a million different versions of childcare that you might be imagining that would be a better fit. I mean, a lot of these are so bound in rules.
Yeah.
Let me pivot off this. College in 3 years. That was another idea they discussed. When I went, I did a year abroad at the London School of Economics in 1990. And I was like, whoa, you guys go to college for 3 years. And we go for 4 years. And I don't know if it matters that much.
Yeah.
Like, to me, it was sort of like, well, college is fun, so I'd rather have 4 years.
Yeah.
But as a parent, I'm like, college is expensive, so I'd rather have 3 years. Certainly, Europe seems to do fine with the 3-year undergraduate, and nobody's saying, God, those Europeans are so freaking stupid because they never got that 4th year. Why can't that be widely available here?
The same thing happens. I mean, look at like in business school. Like, there's all these elite American business schools, and then there's INSEAD in Europe, which is 1 year. So our U.S. business schools are a 2-year program, and so essentially you go to INSEAD and you pay half the price, and there's no difference in terms of the employment outcomes or what happened. No one looks at them as a different potential prospect to hire. It's just they made a different choice and saved approximately half the money in the process.
I wonder if the 3-year college idea might be able to pull in more Blue Tribe voters by saying this is what happens in France and the UK and Germany and a whole bunch of other places. Like, 3-year college is a norm in Europe, and somehow Europe seems very soothing to a lot of Blue Tribe voters.
Yeah.
It's certainly how a lot of, like, hey, we should do healthcare like they do, we should do education like they do, might also have a certain type of simplicity and elegance to it. So I like that idea. The other idea that I like, I'm curious about, 5% of school teachers should earn something like $150,000 a year, $200,000 a year. You know, not everybody, and not based on experience. Some version of like merit pay or combining merit pay with doing some different jobs as teachers, etc. What do you think of that?
I love it. I mean, I think that's what it drew to mind for me was in a lot of like sales-based organizations where you're driving revenue, you will have a CEO that's very highly compensated, maybe a CFO that's very highly compensated, but often in the top 3 or 4 earners are your best salespeople. And they don't necessarily need to be promoted to get paid handsomely. It's because they're doing the thing that's most important and the company recognizes the value. It's often in a commission-based structure, so it's based on performance, but they're compensated in many cases more than the people they report to because of what they're bringing to the table. And I see no reason why that shouldn't be the case in education, insofar as why must a teacher aspire to be an administrator for them to have dramatic earning potential?
Yeah, I love it too. I just love the general idea of valuing excellence and results.
Yeah.
Usually this has been a non-starter. Most of the time, merit pay programs in the US have been either, never get started, or if they get started, they get kind of taken over by business as usual.
Yeah. Let me make one more point on this teacher payout, which is you might argue that for a salesperson, their pay ramps up because they can sell more and more money.
Yeah.
They can make more and more sales of the product. And a teacher can only reach so many students. But that argument should go out the door in terms of how if you start to reimagine education with all the tools at our disposal. Because why can't a teacher's role, if they're really good at teaching, why can't they reach more students? It seems very obvious that there are ways of reimagining our structures for them to be able to do to do more of what they do so well.
Absolutely. There are teachers in some other countries, like in South Korea, for example, that make over $500,000 a year because essentially they're so good at the lecture part of teaching, at explaining ideas in ways that are compelling and precise and have just the right example or just the right tonation or whatever they do. They're sort of part great performer that they play to audiences of thousands. I also know some people that are really unusually good at lesson design, and they're making over $200,000 a year selling their lessons on Teachers Pay Teachers.
Wow.
So it's sort of interesting, right? Like they're bypassing your old company, Pearson, selling huge curriculum to large districts for millions at a pop. These are like, hey, I'll sell you some math lessons for your fourth graders because it's Thanksgiving time, and wouldn't it be cool to have some math lessons that have to do with turkeys or whatever it is, and it costs you $2. But then thousands of teachers are like, I love what you're creating. I just want to buy more of your stuff.
Yeah.
And so unlike normal curriculum purchasing where it's imposed on the teacher, here the teachers are actually, the customer is spending their own cash.
Yeah.
As a result, there's a handful of these teachers that are getting super rich, but none of it is through coercion.
Yeah.
None of it is like they're making a lot because their stuff is being forced on anybody. And they're building their own tribe of merry followers of other fourth grade teachers who think they're frigging awesome.
Has the public sector ever been able to do this effectively, though? I mean, that would be the only side of me that says, hey, look, maybe this is a very idealistic goal that practically speaking has no chance of success.
Yeah, probably. I think merit pay.
Didn't you have some experience with this in Texas, or?
Yeah. So the experience in Texas was pretty cool. Commissioner was like, I want to get teachers making huge dollars if they're really good with kids. And so he created a program for it. But when I talked to districts about how they were thinking about it, they revealed their thinking was, listen, it will be unpopular with our teachers if we're actually giving any reasonable version of, quote unquote, the best ones more money. What's much safer for us is to try to find clever ways to redefine good with kids as years of experience or as credentials, like pretending that certain credentials prove, quote unquote, that you're good at teaching. And so instead of a reasonable discussion saying, hey, how do you want to decide who your best teachers are? One way could be to look at the test scores, gains of kids, right? A very, MIT economists could figure all that out for you. Another way would be have some observers go watch all your teachers and judge who's the best. A third way could be some kind of panel of students or parents or something like that, right? There's different ways you can try to decide who's best. They're all imperfect.
Yeah.
But they were like, no, we're not even literally trying to find out who's best.
Yeah.
We're trying to take what's free cash available for merit and instead turn it into something that's politically acceptable within our tribe of teachers. Let's move to a third idea, I guess, a final idea that came up that I liked.
Yeah.
A problem that Rick was describing is employers often require applicants to have a college degree for jobs that don't really pertain to having a college degree, but it's just the HR department wants some type of screen.
Yeah.
And so huge numbers of Americans cannot apply for these jobs. And I think what Rick was saying is, can we come up with innovative ways to get past this credentialing madness?
Yeah.
That essentially gives an unfair advantage, an unearned advantage in a way to certain college grads and a massive handicap to non-college grads for certain types of jobs that just have nothing to do with whether you went to college, right?
Yeah, well, that was one where I agreed with the problem statement, but I didn't really love the solutions, because the solutions that he seemed to be proposing along the lines of making them liable, I guess, under the law for that just having a college degree does not it make you immune from scrutiny around your employing practices.
Right. There was like this let's skip that part of.
Yeah. So there's like suing people and like increasing the regulatory framework around this.
Yeah, like weird for a conservative, but they would say we're trying to fix a bad regulatory framework by fighting them on the turf they understand, which is the courts. But move past that one. What were some of the other ones? I think it was like, hey, can apprenticeships, like, can you take your financial aid or other things to things that aren't college? Like right now, you know, a lot of the government money spent on higher ed is obviously for college. And the question is, well, there's a lot of people that don't want to go to college, don't think they're a good fit for college or for traditional college. And I think there was this, could there be a conservative strategy of some tax credits or money somehow available more for training, whether that was to the employer or to the employee?
Yeah, making more money available, that's right. And then also making the government as an employer ought to employ people with less, you know, impose these requirements less. So all of these kind of seemed like imperfect solutions that were also big government in some ways.
Yeah. You know, let me run an idea by you, because I agree. I don't know if I thought these were the right solutions, but I agree on the problems. We see it a lot when you study any group of graduates from whether it's charter school networks serving very poor people or just like, you know, the city of Boston, like the poor children of any large city in the US. These are often the people who grow up where they don't get college degrees and they're locked out of big chunks of the job market and they're basically left to fend for themselves in these low wage opportunities, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be awesome if instead of company HR departments requiring a college degree just to apply for certain jobs that have nothing to do with college degrees, if instead of that, the government helped companies get a relatively risk-free way to give the underdogs a shot at the job, the people who might be really good but do not have a college degree? What do you think of that?
Well, first, I love it. I love the concept.
The government could give employers a risk-free way to try people out that didn't have college degrees, so that you could say as the government, listen, if you want to take a candidate and open up to non-college grads, but you think it's a little more risky, what if we were willing to pay the cost for those people to like work for you for like 2 to 8 weeks? Like we'll pay their salary, so they're being fairly treated. They get a free run within your company. They're actually working for you. And so from the employee's point of view, they get a chance that they otherwise your HR is going to screen them out. From the company's point of view, you care more a lot about other qualities. Like, are they a good fit for us? Do they seem to like the work? Are they good at it? All those kinds of things that college is not a good proxy for, whether you have a degree or not, right? And you know, you could have some, like, I don't know, it's like a tryout. I think like a government subsidized tryout for the underdogs in the economy. And then, you know, you can figure out, the lawyers can figure out how to make it risk-free for the employer so they don't, you know, like you could imagine all this, like, well, once we give them a tryout, are we obligated to take them or do we have to build this? Like, you know, you can imagine all this stuff the lawyers would have to deal with.
There's a couple potential issues that I see with it, but I don't think they're insurmountable. So I think one is, how do you protect how do you protect any individual that, let's say, fails a tryout from just becoming its own form of credentialing? Like someone who missed on 2 different tryouts, why am I going to give him a third option, give him a third tryout somewhere else? You know, like, is that person just going to become unemployable? I want the employer to be able to let them go. I want them to part ways.
Yeah.
But I want the employee to be able to look at a new profession, I want them to, you know, I don't want them, by taking this chance and trying on this company, and for whatever reason it may not have been a fit. So we don't know why it's not the right fit.
Yeah.
Whenever you're doing something like this, you know, if in evaluating a short period and there's no risk on the company side, which I like that they can exit, it also means that the barrier for them to keep, they have to really want to keep you. So there's like, you know, they may just decide, look, we don't have the budget, we're not going to do this, or whatever reason, they may decide to go in a different direction. How does that not become a black mark on your own? How does that not become a scarlet letter?
Oh, it's just omitted from your resume. That's what happens now. In other words, typically, I mean, I work with a number of people who are like sort of in this thing where like there's holes in their resume.
Yeah.
2 months, 8 months,
yeah,
a year and a half. And so when you work with people like this, you need to construct a story that reasonably fits. But the idea that you would have, had a tryout or a couple tryouts, I just think that wouldn't be part of your resume or your story to future applicants.
Got it.
You would just omit it.
Yep.
No different from now. Sometimes people take a job and they quit after 3 weeks. They don't typically say in their resume, oh, here's a job that I had for 3 weeks, but it didn't work out.
Yeah, that's a good point. And so the second, I think, issue that comes to mind, and maybe it's not even an issue, is just I have found in experience that internships in general, amongst a very different, we're not talking about the same type of underdogs here, but in internships in general tend to be much more evaluative in getting the internship than the internship itself. Because I find most internships, because of the amount of time it takes to ramp someone up, most internships are structured around trying to give people a decent experience, giving them some busy work. And they don't tend to be structured in a very evaluative fashion or a way that really is symbolic of whether someone will be a good performer within a team.
I totally agree. That's why it's sort of like, to me, I want an audition for the actual job, with the idea being, hey, if you are hiring a customer service assistant manager for a big cable company and they say, well, you have to have a college degree to apply, and our intrepid friend who does not have a college degree would be quite good at it, but they can't get in the door to get a shot. And so, but what if they came with a check from Uncle Sam?
Yeah.
And so then they say, hey, listen, I'm applying. I'd like to audition for that job. Interview me, understanding I don't have a college degree, but knowing you get 8 free weeks of me.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're comparing from the cable company's point of view, it's like, I can either take the college grad that I have available, or I can take the best of the non-college grad. There are 27 non-college grads who also applied. And the best one of all 27 of those people, like they're going to work for us, quote unquote, for free. They're getting paid. So I'm getting a subsidy for them. They're happy. And I actually get to watch them perform as a customer service rep at our company. It's not an internship. It's like you're actually doing the job.
Yeah.
With the idea being, maybe there's a 25% chance that at the end of this 8 weeks, I don't think that the best of the 27 non-college grads should continue at our company. And maybe that 25% chance of failure is higher than, in their mind, the 15% chance that the college grad. But with the college grad, they're kind of stuck.
Yeah.
With the non-college grad, they have a really healthy exit. Sorry, I don't think it's the right fit, but
Very good point.
You waived away all your appeal rights. You agreed that was fair. You did the work. It's not painful. And so I think from a company's point of view, they might find they're getting the best of everybody out there who's not a college grad.
Yeah.
And loving it and seeing real value accrue to their business.
Yeah.
So rather than the stuff that I'll concede to you, which is if it's a fake internship, you don't learn much. It's just have them start doing the job.
Yep. Yeah. That's a good point. I like this.
All right, great. So you got to develop the idea in full. I want to see a 20-page proposal on my desk.
Yeah.
In 24 hours.
You got it. Is it, am I going at it from, I guess I'm going at it from a new business angle. I'm going to be the one hiring them. I'll leave it to the government to figure out how they're going to pay me.
No, yeah, that's a good point. You think of it as an investor and an entrepreneur, so do I. I don't know. I guess it's you got to come up with the political strategy called the Underdog Jobs Act, which gives tax credits, somehow pays people directly who are unemployed, non-college grads seeking a job.
Yeah.
If they're able to get in the door at a legitimate company, pays them for their first 8 weeks to try to prove that they should stay.
What you're talking about should have really broad liberal appeal to the idea that, okay, we're going to give underdogs a bigger shot in our economy. And it should also have a major conservative appeal to those that want to say the role of government as regulator and credentialer is a role that can be done more effectively and in a more limited fashion, right?
Yeah, you might. You take something right from each side. I think instinctively I tend to like to do that, which means I'm part of a non-tribe, right?
Yeah,
moderates that see merit to both sides of a lot of issues. Like, it's so interesting. You could take a bunch of ideas, and if you cleverly take away the labeling and you just explain the ideas to people, you get very different reactions.
Yeah.
Than if they know what tribe, right? Like, you could describe No Child Left Behind as a George Bush thing or a Ted Kennedy thing, because they came together to create it.
Yeah.
And like, imagine the difference in people's reactions if you explained a few planks of No Child Left Behind,
yeah,
but you told people either Ted Kennedy or George Bush did it. You'd get, 98% of people would just stick with their tribe and say the Bush idea was good or the Kennedy idea was, good or bad, whatever their tribe is.
Oh, for sure. Awesome.
All right, man. That's our show for today.
Thanks. This was fun.
Good stuff.